Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fit Life Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqui. I'm the owner of JL Fitness and Lifestyle, and I'm an online women's health coach. So welcome. If you're watching me on video and you have been following me through like my other podcast episodes, I am in a different location today. I'm in my kitchen, home with my little guy today because he is not feeling great. So we might be picking up some extra noises and stuff today. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, some updates from the last week, I guess. For some reason, I just decided that I was going to start working out at 5 a.m. This is like one of those goals that is kind of like always there for me, but it was just a matter of like when I was going to start implementing. I just kind of spontaneously decided to start implementing it. And it's actually been going really, really well. Just the setup of my current routine actually sets me up quite nicely to get up at 5 a.m. It's just that I haven't been getting up at 5 a.m. And if I've been getting up early, it wasn't to work out. It was just because I was kind of up and not really prepared to work out and stuff like that. But this past week or two, I've really started to implement that, and I'm really proud of myself for it. And it feels really good. And it's a great start to my day, but also like just leaves a little bit more room, throughout the rest of my day to get other things done. And I feel like that's kind of where this is coming from, is just like all those little things that you need to do for Christmas and events and stuff that happen in December. I just feel like I need more time. But I didn't want to sacrifice my workouts for that time because I also have fitness goals, and I didn't want to put that. I'm not in a place where I feel like I want to like put that on the back burner. So this is just how I've been kind of adapting my routine, is like doing that 5 a.m. workout, adjusting a few little things in terms of like what I'm eating and when I'm eating it in order to accommodate that. Just because like I'm someone that doesn't really do well if I work out on an empty stomach. I do a lot better if I have something in my stomach. So it's just like also taking that into account for the rest of my day in terms of how my meals look and stuff. So what I mean is like there's still those extra calories that you're eating at 5 a.m. in order to support my workout. So I have to take that into account for like the other decisions that I might make during the day. Not that I'm eating like a huge amount or anything like that, but just knowing that like having an extra protein shake or anything like that is still a little bit extra. So I just kind of cut down in the rest of my day there too. And then just knowing and expecting that my morning workouts that early in the morning don't always go as well as an afternoon workout goes, I find. I generally find that my afternoon workouts usually feel a little bit stronger because I'm already pretty well fueled. I've been awake. I've kind of like, in that sense, I'm not coming right from bed. So I'm a little bit more warmed up just kind of by nature of like moving around, and just stuff like that. So it's just like making these little adjustments as I kind of go and as I get used to getting up early for these early morning workouts. But yeah, I'm really proud of how this is going. I'm really enjoying it. Like again, my routine was kind of setting me up for it as it was. I just wasn't getting up. But there really isn't a reason for me not to get up and do it or do something. So even this morning, for example, I didn't get up to work out, but I still got up early just to kind of help myself with that consistency and with that routine. For a while now, I've been going to bed at 8 o'clock because my husband and my oldest go to bed at 8 o'clock. So generally I'm putting my son to bed. I read him a bedtime story. He usually ends up in bed with us still. Which is fine with us. Like it works for us. We all sleep great when he wants to sleep with us, whatever, it's totally fine. And then what I will do is I will stay up and read like in bed, but like beside my toddler and my husband. And I generally read for about an hour or so, and like aim to close my book by 9 o'clock. So falling asleep or like setting myself up for all of that and making when I'm on par with my routine and I am actually like legitimately falling asleep in and around 9 o'clock, 9:30, like then I get a solid 8 hours of sleep and I wake up feeling fine at 5 o'clock. So yeah, it's been going great. And I'm just, yeah, it's a good place to be. And I think you have to be in like a good spot for that. Like, I don't generally have many interruptions most nights. Like, I still have them because you have kids, you're going to have interruptions. But also keeping in mind that like we can still show up tired, and the benefit that I'm going to get from my morning exercise or my morning training is going to really set my day up for like a good day. And even when when I haven't had like say optimal sleep before those training sessions, I still felt really good for the rest of the day because I showed up and did that training session. So just goes to show this, we can do some hard things, we can show up tired. If that is the time that like works for you, it takes a little bit of leverage to get into a routine like that, but it's possible, and it could also be the best thing for you just because of all of the benefits that you're getting from making sure that you're getting some sort of exercise in your day. So yeah, that's something that was happening this week. I feel like there was something else I wanted to share, and I'm not really remembering what it was now, but maybe it'll come to me as I'm talking. Okay, so today we are at December 12th, so we're almost halfway through December already, which is kind of nuts. We're halfway through the 24 days of Christmas, which is kind of nuts. So Christmas is here in another 12 days. But I wanted to start the conversation around New Year's resolutions. And I know some people, or a lot of people, might not even be thinking about this yet. They might not even think about it until like after Christmas. But I wanted the conversation started because I think it's something that a lot of people need to think about. And not that there is anything wrong with New Year's resolutions or making one. There's also nothing wrong with starting a new goal now. There's, you'll hear a lot of these different kind of sides of this in the fitness industry of like, don't wait until the new year, like start now, like blah, 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 blah. But also there's nothing wrong with starting the new year either. In fact, there's actually some evidence that starting on a Monday or starting fresh in the new year or whatever it is can actually be very, very beneficial from a psychological perspective. It's just that we have to have things implemented in order to allow you to be successful in this. And that's what I really want to talk about today. So when we're setting up New Year's resolutions, firstly, I think for me, one of the things that I don't love anymore is that whole like new year, new me kind of perspective. And I know that this can kind of mean different things to different people. For me, what comes up is that we're thinking about erasing who you are in order to become someone better. Whereas I don't think that that's necessarily necessary, but because you are not where you are now because of you are here now where you are because of the past versions of yourself. And I don't think there's any shame in that. So even though like you might have made decisions that negatively impacted you, or maybe you went through phases of life where you were having a hard time or were not showing up in the way that you wanted to, but that doesn't mean that who you are now and what you're doing is wrong, right? There are lessons to be learned in certain seasons of life, and there are ways to push ourselves through growth. And there's a big difference between becoming someone entirely new or growing into someone that you were meant to be or somebody that you are proud to be. But that's not without the lessons learned from your past. So instead of saying new year, new me, I want to say, new year leveled up kind of me, right? Like this is that year of growth. This is a year of being like a 2.0 version of yourself. It's an upgrade. Maybe that's it. New year upgraded me kind of thing, right? Like we're not dismissing who we are in the past or trying to get rid of pieces of ourselves. We're trying to grow. We're trying to improve. We're trying to be better. And even that, like, just because you're trying to be better doesn't mean you're not good right now. It just means that there's always room for improvement. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing that. And I think, in fact, that most people who are always pursuing growth and who are always pursuing improvement or goals or like the next step are probably among the happiest people in the world because they're setting out some sort of purpose for themselves and some sort of like fulfillment in that learning process. So remember that in terms of like what you envision for yourself in the new year in 2025. Like, what do you envision for yourself? What would make you a better version of yourself, or an elevated version of yourself that you would want to achieve in 2025? The difference, though, is that when we are looking for those goals and how we're going to kind of frame them, there is a difference between behavior-based goals and results-based goals. What a lot of people end up doing is they look to the result-based goals. So say like, I'm going to lose 30 pounds this year, or I'm finally going to fit into that size 2 jeans or something crazy like that. That's a result-based goal. That's something that we want to see. There's something there that's the result that we want. However, results like that require many different behavior changes. And if we don't know what kind of behavior changes we're going to implement in order to get that result is not going to happen. And what will happen, and I'm thinking back to like my own experience, like I have had years where that was my goal, was I was going to lose weight or get more fit or whatever it was, but there was no in between. Like, so if I was at point A and point B was my result goal, how was I going to get from point A to point B? There was no really thought process in that. There was no like, this is how I'm going to do it. There was no like, this is what I need to change in order to get there. It was like, this is what I want. And then it would be the things that I would do in order to get there were more so those quick fix, like desperate ways of trying to reach that goal. So it was the detox teas. It was the 30-day New Year's challenge and hoping and thinking that was going to help me reach my goal super early. It was like, trying out a different diet, like a different fad diet, or cutting out certain foods or whatever it was, because there was no real plan in changing my behavior in order to get that result. So this is where I want to talk about like, how do we actually make resolutions that are actionable and achievable and realistic in a way that you can actually say that you met your 2024 resolution. So I want you, instead of having a results-based goal or resolution, and maybe you will kind of have that in the back of your mind, but I want you to have a more of a behavior-based goal. So what's that going to be? Is it, I'm going to start learning how to exercise this year? And we could get even more specific than that, right? Is it, like, what's a barrier to exercise to you right now? Is it something like, I don't know how to exercise, or I'm not comfortable with exercising, or I don't know enough about it? Or maybe it's something like, I'm not comfortable in the gym, or I'm not comfortable using certain pieces of equipment, or like it's overwhelming for me. Or maybe it's something like, I haven't found something that I like or enjoy, or whatever that piece may be. That's the part that I think is more worthwhile exploring, because there are skills that need to be developed in order to get certain results, and that is an example of one of them. A lot of people don't realize that really training and exercise, it's a skill. Like, this is something you have to learn how to do. Nobody inherently knows how to exercise unless they are shown how to. So maybe the goal for your New Year's resolution as a part of a weight loss strategy would be to learn how to exercise. This year, I'm committed to learning how to exercise in a way that I will be more comfortable and that will get me more consistent with exercise. I don't want to be falling off the rails again. No more 30-day challenges and then I stop working out for 6 months and then come back to it. But maybe the goal is to start working out consistently. And you could go even deeper into that. So how are you going to start working out consistently? Are you going to sign up with a personal trainer that's going to keep you accountable and keep you showing up? Are you going to join some sort of online coaching program that, again, like that accountability is there? Do you have a friend that goes to the gym that maybe you can link up with and go to the gym together and they can teach you some things? Like, have some sort of plan to help you change that behavior and to improve on that behavior so that you can nail down that consistency and start implementing that into your overall lifestyle. And that is going to help to result in whatever your end goal is. The other thing is too, with certain end goals like fat loss and like weight loss, is that the things that you need to do to get there are things that you need to continue to do even after you've achieved that goal. If you want to sustain a fat loss goal or a weight loss goal, you're going to have to sustain the behaviors that get you there. So for the people that might have met a weight loss goal by cutting out carbs, that's great, but what's going to happen when you start eating carbs again after you've met that weight loss goal? You're probably going to gain it back. So if we do things that are realistic, that's going to help us to sustain that weight loss goal, because they are going to be actual behavior changes that you plan to implement for the foreseeable future. And that's why this is a big reason why, like, I talk about the other benefits of all of these things. It's because we're not trying to do these things to punish ourselves for, eating poorly or gaining weight or whatever it is that we feel like this needs to be done, that needs to be done. It's because there are so many other benefits to these behaviors besides the results that you're looking for. So with exercise, for example, we know that exercise is going to help to contribute to fat loss and weight loss, but there's also so many other benefits to exercise. There's an incredible amount of evidence that supports the benefits of exercise, and by not exercising, you are doing yourself a big disservice. It's not just the physical appearance that you can get from training. It's like the muscle mass that you can build. It's the longevity that you can create. It's the bone density that you're going to make that's going to result in, like less breakage and fractures and stuff when you become older. It's going to allow you to perform better and function better overall in your day-to-day life. It's going to reduce pain. There's so many other benefits of exercise, especially when you learn how to implement it properly. So we want exercise to be in our lifestyle and to be like a long-term thing that's going to stay in our life regardless of whatever our goals are. So by making it a goal to change that behavior and to make it part of your lifestyle is going to be much more effective than the resolution of losing a certain amount of pounds. Same thing goes for nutrition. So I think like another good resolution with behavior change could be something like to cook more meals at home. That can be something that is a behavior change. It's more effective than, saying I'm going to cut out all carbs for this year or something like that. But a behavior that we can change is something like I'm going to cook more meals at home. Or my resolution is to incorporate more fruits and vegetables in my diet, or incorporate more whole foods into my diet, or to maybe shop on the outside of the grocery store for most of my food, like 90% of my food coming from the outside of a grocery store rather than from the aisles in the middle. So again, like different things like that can lead to these behavior changes that are going to be more long-term, still contribute to the end result that you're looking for, but also create a lifestyle that is going to be supportive of maintaining whatever end goal that you're looking for. So that's the difference between behavior change and having behavior change goals versus having a results-based goal, where honestly, with certain results, we don't necessarily have full control over whether those results happen or not, or how fast or how slow those results happen. And that's where a coach can be really, really handy, is because oftentimes we'll have this goal, and I even have clients do this sometimes. So in my client check-in that I do with my clients on a weekly basis, they have each of my clients fill out a form on a certain day that they've signed up for, and one of the questions in our check-in form is setting up a small goal for themselves for the week. So between the check-in that they submit and the next check-in, they're going to set up a small goal for themselves. And I talk a lot about this with them, about behavior change goals, like things like, okay, right now I'm at an average of 5,000 steps a day. For this week, I'm going to try to get 6,000 steps a day. Something like that. But I have, once in a while, we'll get a client that will be like, my goal is to lose 1 pound this week, or my goal is to lose 2 pounds this week. That's a results-based goal, and that's not necessarily something that you have full control over. And that's where people get really, really frustrated with. So I always explain to them that although we can have that goal, it's not something that is within their day-to-day control. What we can look at are the things that are going to influence their weight, like their nutrition, like their sleep, like their stress, like how much movement that they're getting, and continue to improve those things that will then result in that weight loss, especially if it's somebody who has a lot of weight to lose. But the fluctuations that happen on a day-to-day basis with the scale, which depends on a number of different factors, there is very little control over how much of that weight we will actually lose. Like, we can't control that, right? Like, you can control how many steps you get in a day because you're making choices throughout the day that are going to lead to a certain step count. You can control how many calories that you're eating because you have control over what kind of foods you put in your mouth. You can control these things, or at the very least manage them, right? When it comes to stress and sleep, for example, we can help ourselves and set ourselves up for a good night's sleep. We can help ourselves to manage stress, but we also don't necessarily have full control over what's going to happen throughout the night when you're sleeping. Like, are your kids going to wake up? Are you going to have difficulty sleeping, like trouble turning your brain off? But we can set things in place that will help with those things. But if you do have crappy sleep, maybe you're at a certain part of your cycle, and there's women, myself included, that during certain phases of their cycle, they have difficulty sleeping. Because usually this is affected by hormones and things like that. So if this is a week that you're aiming for a 2-pound weight loss in a week, but you have shitty sleep, that weight loss is going to have a lot of trouble coming off because of the inflammation that the lack of sleep is going to cause. So again, the lack of sleep isn't causing fat gain, but it's causing inflammation, and inflammation is water retention, which again is nothing bad. Inflammation and water retention are not bad things. It's a natural response that your body has when it's under a little bit more stress. If you're not sleeping, your body's going to be a little bit more stressed out. Lack of sleep also makes it really, really difficult to stay in a calorie deficit. And not that it's impossible, but it makes it more difficult because your body is going to be looking for energy through other means because it didn't collectively get enough sleep to rest and retain its own kind of energy, right? So it's going to seek it out through food. So there's different variables that are going to influence the scale that make it very much out of our control, but we can control the things that will influence the scale. And over a long period of time, that was what makes the scale drop. So anyways, all that to say that the results-based goals are not going to be helpful for you for New Year's resolutions, but behavior-based goals are going to be much easier to achieve, and I don't want to say much easier, but they are much more actionable. They're more actionable. There are ways to set it up so that you have that focus and that kind of pinpoint to focus on throughout the year and always kind of come back to. And if you're able to do that and always kind of come back to it and maintain some level of consistency with it, you're going to see a lot more improvement with that behavior change and how that impacts your life. Not just from a weight loss perspective, but just from the other benefits that come with it, right? So if your goal is to get more consistent with exercising, for example, and you maintain that goal for the rest of the year, imagine the amount of outcomes you're going to see, not just from getting stronger, possibly changing your physique or anything like that, but even from like a mental perspective or like mental well-being, and even from like a stress management perspective, like that, those training sessions can turn into something that you really, really love and actually be really beneficial for you from a mental and emotional perspective. So that is why I wanted to come on here and get and kind of put the bug in everybody's ear that these are important things to really consider when you're thinking about your New Year's resolution and what you want 2025 to look like. So, there's a big difference, and it doesn't seem like complicated to switch those perspectives of these goals, but it does make a big difference in whether or not you're going to be able to achieve them. Something I did last year, I think this is the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about myself, was I had a word for 2024. And this is interesting because it's, again, like one of those things that feels like such a small thing, but I think it was actually pretty impactful for me. And my word last year was authenticity. And I was actually looking through my Instagram stories the other day, like in my archives. And I did go on Instagram and talk about authenticity and being like, this word is really like resonating with me right now. And it's not that I don't think I'm like inauthentic or anything like that. I actually think I'm a pretty, if I may, I think I'm a pretty authentic person. Like, I don't pretend to be someone that I'm not. But I do think that there is a level where I struggle with showing up and showing all of me in an authentic way through my business and through social media, and like maybe like voicing things that I think or believe or feel because I'm afraid of what other people will think. So it's not that I'm pretending, it's just that maybe I think that I tend to withhold things, and it's more so out of like fear or like of like what people think or how it would make other people feel or anything like that. So this past year for me was that piece that I wanted to try to be more authentic in how I expressed myself and not being afraid of being more authentic. So it wasn't, it wasn't about like not being fake. It was about like expressing myself more. And it was that word. And again, like it wasn't that I had that word in my head every day of 2024, but it was something that I kept revisiting. And when I was trying to make certain decisions about, namely about my coaching business or even like relationships and stuff like that, it was one of those things where it was like, this is how I'm going to make my decision because I made a commitment to be more authentic. So instead of withholding myself like I usually would, I'm actually going to say something. Or when it came to my coaching business, it was like, when I'm making a decision on how, like this podcast, for example, was a big driving factor. Was a decision that was made because of the word authenticity. And I just feel like with short form content, like on Instagram Reels or anything like that, when you only have a couple of minutes, if that, to put something out there, I have a difficult time expressing myself and articulating things in like a concise manner. Like that's just how I talk. I am elaborate and I go into detail and I'm a storyteller. And sometimes I'm one of those people that kind of talks, I don't think, like maybe talks in circles, but goes into like different things while I'm trying to make a point. So short form content might not actually be my best form of content because that is it. I just have a difficult time talking like that. So that was what made me want to start a podcast, or at least like make the leap for it, because I know that I can sit here and talk. And I am lucky that there are a handful of people that will listen. And I'm very, very thankful for that and appreciative that there are people that do enjoy listening to me talk. So that was a pretty cool part of that. But yeah, so that was something that came from that word, authenticity. And I set that out for 2024 around this time last year. This year, so I haven't, the word that's coming to me and that has been kind of resonating, and I don't know if it makes sense, is lightness, which I know is weird, like it's an awkward word almost. But what kind of like made me think about that? So for context, I guess, over the last few years, last few years, I have been doing a lot of inner work. And that has included therapy. Now, what I find with therapy is that as beneficial as it has been, and as much as it has helped me make some pretty big leaps and bounds with my inner self, it is heavy. You know, like the way that I kind of feel about therapy is mostly positive, but I feel like when you dive into certain things and traumas and stuff like that, it's like having a wound that you have to reopen. That's literally like how I would describe anything that I've talked about in therapy, especially stuff that I have never talked about with other people, is that it's something that you are protective of because it hurts, and maybe it's like, so I would describe it as like a wound that never healed properly kind of thing. And it hurts and it's uncomfortable, and talking about it in therapy reopens that wound. And so it weighs on you, and for me it causes a lot of anxiety, like opening up about that stuff and thinking about it. The fight or flight mode gets really, really triggered in me, and that healing process is very heavy. But once it's healed, it feels so much better. You're just like so much more at peace. That old wound is now healed properly. It doesn't bother you anymore. It might still be there and something that you deal with, but it doesn't hurt anymore. And that you're right. So like in some sense, like you're still getting that peace. You're feeling better about it. There is a bit of that release. But what I find about the inner work is that you're constantly analyzing yourself, like why you're doing certain things, what your triggers are, why you reacted a certain way. Like there's so much analytical pieces to it that you're doing. And that's also something that I find heavy, and that sometimes I'm just like, I wish I didn't take this so seriously, because on one hand, as much as it's so healing and I'm learning about myself, and the more I learn about myself, the better person I become, the more, the more things I have to offer. But on the other hand, life is so fucking short, and I don't want to spend all of my life feeling like this heaviness in my chest and over analyzing every single situation and how I handle it, or what the best decision is, or how other people are reacting, or what they feel like, or like, stuff like that. So 2025 for me is that I want to live lighter. I want to, not take things so seriously, have a bit more of a lighter approach mentally and emotionally to things, and just remind myself that we are here for a blip of time, and I need to enjoy it more. And I need to like relish in the things that I am very, very privileged to have and be thankful for. And it's not that I haven't been thankful or anything like that. I am immensely grateful for many things in my life, but I don't want to be that over analytical person where to the point that everything just feels heavy. So that's where I'm at. I've been starting it already, where I find myself noticing these kinds of these thought patterns that I get myself into that kind of lead to that over analysis of stuff, and I get overthinking, and I keep coming back to like lightness, like let it go, Jacqui. That's what it is. It's letting these things go and not dwelling on them as much as I do. So that's my word for 2025 is lightness. And yeah, reminding myself not to take things as seriously as I do. Like, for sure, obviously there's things to take seriously, but to not hold on to it as much. Yeah, so that's what it is. Live light, live lighter, um, and let go of the small shit. let go of the big shit. Even like, there's so much that we hold on to that is so far out of our control, and it doesn't do us any good to hold on to it. And I think my life will be better for it, just from my own psychological and mental health perspective, to just realize that I can't control everybody. I can't control a lot of things. I can only focus on what's within my control, but I also need to learn how to emotionally and mentally let go of things that I can't control either. I can't control what other people feel. I can't help everybody all of the time. Right? So, like, holding on to these things is not serving me, and it's not adding value to my life. And I just want to learn to let those things kind of slide off my back a lot easier than what I always already do. And I think, yeah, just that physical feeling of feeling light and feeling more carefree and just being joyful. I don't know, right? Like, that's like what I envision for myself, is living lightly. And that's where I'm at with my own kind of New Year's resolutions, I guess, is that's my word for 2025. And I honestly don't even know what my what my other kind of New Year's goals are. I feel like those kind of come in waves. Right now, I'm working on muscle building. I'm in a maintenance phase because, Christmas time, I was like, this is a good time to be in a maintenance phase. I'm not really worried about being in a deficit or anything right now. So I'm taking advantage of that. And that's also why I'm getting my 5 a.m. workouts in, because if you are in a maintenance and you do have muscle building goals, you need to be doing your training. Then that's kind of like the shift of focus, is like calorie deficit is very much more of a focus with nutrition and being in a calorie deficit, but also doing your workouts and stuff. Whereas like maintenance and muscle building is a bit of a shift to really focusing on your workouts and, to a lesser extent, your nutrition, even though you want to be implementing a lot of the same aspects of that. So that's where I'm at personally. I did have some questions from some people about New Year's resolutions. So this was actually interesting. I think I was just not very clear about what kind of questions I was looking for, because the people that answered asked very specific questions, I think, about what their goals or resolutions would be. One second. So I got quite a few questions about, things to implement in order to reach a goal kind of thing, rather than like how to set a New Year's resolution. So I'm going to answer them anyways, because I think it does drive into the idea of behavior change kind of thing. So the first question was hacks for eating well and prepping food. And then there was another question about like how I in particular ingredient prep for myself and doing all those things. So obviously this is kind of like a behavior change goal, which I love, in terms of just like eating better and making sure you're consistently eating better and how we can do that. And this kind of goes into that goal of like eating more at home, and how that can be really helpful with those behavior changes in terms of like improving your nutrition. Honestly, hacks for eating well is the focus on what you're eating. Eating, to a lesser extent, things that are canned and things, and like, I don't like saying that because it depends on the accessibility that you have as well. But focusing on whole single ingredient foods is honestly the least complicated way that you can change what you're choosing to eat, and by nature increasing the amount of nutritional density that you're going to get. So what I mean are like, things that come from animals, things that come from the ground, things that come from trees, like any kind of like animal product and plant product are likely going to be something that is healthy for you. So I know there are people out there who are like, don't eat red meat or don't eat eggs or like whatever that is. Don't. Throw that shit out the window, okay? Obviously, yes, with certain things, we don't want to be eating them like for every single meal. With like red meat, for example, especially if you have like high cholesterol or blood pressure issues or anything like that, red meat is still fantastic for you from a nutritional perspective. But because of the fats that it has in it, you don't want to be eating that all the time. So you do want to balance it with leaner sources of meat and protein, but protein is still very, very, very important for you. Eggs, I am like 99% sure that eggs have been debunked. Like, have your eggs. They're still really good for you. They are full of like good cholesterol and things like that. But again, like, don't have eggs for like every single meal. Also, you're going to get really sick of them, but having them for breakfast every day and a cup, like, 3 eggs a day is not going to do you any harm. So that is how I would approach, firstly, like how you choose what you're eating. And there are lots of, and I know that can feel really overwhelming for some people too, because they're like, well, where do I start? Like, what do you eat, Jacqui? And I'm like, choose what you like to eat, because what I like to eat might be totally different than what you like to eat. But if you can make yourself lists, like say a list of 5 different meats that you enjoy, a list of 5 different vegetables that you enjoy, a list of 5 different fruits that you enjoy, maybe a list of 5 different starchy carbs that you enjoy, you have a plethora of options that are going to come from like 20 different ingredients. And I also tell my clients too, like, although recipes are great, a lot of recipes are complicated. They're overwhelming. They're not realistic to make on a weekly basis or a daily basis because they're too complicated. It's so much easier to ingredient prep than it is to meal prep, in the sense of like, cook a bunch of meat, cook a bunch of vegetable, and cook a bunch of like starchy carb, put them in your fridge, and you can use them in like the most versatile ways that you can think of, or just eat them on their own, like plate your food with those 3 things on your plate. And it's so much easier to eat well if that is what you're doing. Being in a calorie deficit is a little bit different. It is a little bit more dialed in, because you want to be thinking about how much you're eating. You need to know how much you need to eat in order to be in a calorie deficit, and that is dependent on a variety of factors. I'm going into this because I did have a question about how to calculate a calorie deficit. And I think I actually might do more details on this, like in something else, like in either like a reel or another podcast or something like that. But the short answer for this one is that there's a few different calculations that you can do. There are lots of different calorie calculators online that you can use, and they might all give you like, I would say like probably the same range, but there's also different calculators that only consider certain things. So the easiest one is if you were to take your goal weight or your ideal weight and multiply it by 12, that will give you the number of calories that you will need to eat in order to be in a calorie deficit. This calculation is great for a starting point, but it doesn't consider, it kind of just assumes that you're sedentary. So if you are a sedentary person and you are looking to lose weight and you're not going to be increasing your like energy expenditure anytime soon, so like the amount of time that you spend moving or exercising or anything like that, even though you should, by the way, that is a really good straightforward way to calculate a calorie deficit. Now I always tell people to take calculations with a grain of salt, because it's a calculation. A calculator cannot like determine a specific number for your body. There are so many variables that impact how many calories that your body needs, and it doesn't matter what kind of calculation we do. There's still going to be room for playing around with that and how your body responds. So for some people, for example, it might really work really, really well for you to calculate your ideal body weight and multiply it by 12. And you might be really successful with that, and that's perfect. For other people, it might not be as successful, whether it's because it's too low, because it's assuming that you are sedentary. So if you are highly active and eating at this kind of point, you can be successful for sure, but you might get to a point where you're just no longer able to sustain it because it's assuming that you're sedentary and you're actually expending a lot more energy than what that calculator kind of like considered. So you might find that you don't lose any weight because you actually end up overeating every day because you're too hungry in order to sustain that calorie deficit. There are other calculators, and these are the ones that the calculation that I usually use considers your age, whether you're male or female, how active you are, your height. So it has a little bit more detail going into it, and I still wouldn't like take it at face value that like this is how many calories you need to eat, blah blah blah. No, we wouldn't do that. So that's also where working with a coach can be really helpful, is like kind of telling you like when you need to adjust how many calories you're eating, in order to accommodate how your body is responding to the caloric intake that you actually are eating. Now, the other side of it though is that oftentimes if you think you're eating at a calorie deficit, say you do the multiplication by 12, for your ideal body weight, you're following that amount of calories for a prolonged period of time, you're tracking your food, blah, 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 and you're not losing any weight, you might not actually be in a calorie deficit. And that could be for a variety of reasons that I have talked about in previous podcasts. So if you check out, I think 2 podcasts ago, I did one on how to make fat loss easier. It's all in there. We talk about like these different mistakes that people make that result in them not losing weight. So these are some of the things that will make things easier. So I did do a whole podcast on this, but essentially having a coach to kind of be that like person on the outside looking in and saying like, okay, I know you feel this way, but look at this and look at this and look at this. You're not actually in a deficit, or you could actually not be in a deficit because you're doing certain things this way. So things like not weighing your food and you're using cups or guesstimations or pieces and things like that, that can be a very big mistake that a lot of people are making, because that is not objectively telling you how much food that you're eating because you're not weighing it out. Using a food scale and weighing things out is going to be much more accurate, and the more accurate you can be with your food tracking and understanding how much you're putting into your mouth, it's going to make things a lot more straightforward. Understanding how much energy you're actually expending. So there might be people out there who work out, 5 or 6 days a week, and they do their hour-long workout or whatever it is, but they're only getting 3,000 steps a day. So if you're getting like 5,000 steps or lower a day, I would put you into a sedentary category, even if you are working out. So just knowing that even though you work out every day for that hour, the rest of your day you're spending mostly on your butt. So you need to be moving more, and once you're moving more, that's going to help significantly with your energy expenditure, and therefore putting you into a higher calorie deficit and allowing you to actually see the results that you're looking for. So again, like this takes like practice and understanding in kind of like overseeing some of these aspects of fat loss in order to like make sure that you're actually in a calorie deficit. However, the calorie calculator is a good step in that direction. So yeah, that's what I would start with. And actually, this kind of segues into why steps are important. So if you have a behavior change of getting more steps throughout the year or increasing your average step count, this is one of the reasons why. Like, not just elevating how active you are throughout the day, but taking you out of that sedentary category and actually making you an active person is determined a lot by how many steps that you get in a day. So I know that even there's a lot of people out there for one reason or another don't love like tracking all of these things. Like, oh, I have to track my food. I have to track my steps. I have to track how much water I have. What is measured is managed. It's way easier to manage everything if you have some sort of measurement of it and knowing how much you're actually doing. And the step count is an incredible way of knowing how active you actually are. So the benefits of steps and not just as a measurement, but understanding like how many steps you should be getting is also an incredible factor for increasing your level of activity, but also reaping the benefits of moving more. So you're going to sleep better, you're going to get better stress management. If you're going for walks on purpose, especially outside every single day in order to increase your step count, you're also going to reap the mental and emotional benefits of fresh air and going for that walk and having that extra physical activity. That's all incredible ways that are going to contribute to fat loss, but also to your overall emotional and like mental well-being too. So these are just those are the few questions around like nutrition and calorie deficits and, increasing activity. Those are all really fantastic behavior change. Well, the calorie deficit, I guess, isn't quite behavior. Maybe it's behavior change, I guess. Like if you're looking into like, losing fat by being in a calorie deficit, that is definitely a more actionable step than just saying like I'm going to lose weight this year. But if you're saying I'm going to lose weight this year by being in a calorie deficit, and this is how I'm going to stay in a calorie deficit or work towards being in a calorie deficit, those are the more like actionable behaviors that you can actually focus on in 2025. So that's actually where I would start if that's one of your goals. So anyways, I think I'm going to wrap this up here because I have kind of exhausted everything I was going to talk about, but I hope this was really helpful. If you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please consider giving us a 5-star review on this podcast. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, whatever it is, I would really appreciate it. This allows my podcast to get more reach when it has really has good reviews. So please leave a 5-star review. That's really helpful. And please share this with anybody else who you feel like will benefit from understanding how they can better set New Year's resolutions that will actually be achievable for them. 2025 is coming, guys. We're almost there. Which is insane. Like this 2024 was quite the year. Maybe I'll do that later this month. It's like a year in review or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. Anyways, I hope you all have a great day. Oh, did I just say y'all? I just said y'all. Wow. All right. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.